Okay.
So we're up to page Yudalid on the left column. And we have a paragraph that starts Uladas Rabbi Elazar. And Rabbi Elazar has the opinion called Shiuro Eno Mishuya. So we're talking about a case of a Vlad of Chulin, and the mother of this Vlad was Chulin, and then he was Magdish the mother, and the Vlad becomes Vlad Kodshim. So the Vlad is likewise endowed with Kedusha. And according to Rabbi Elazar, we have a principle called Uber Yerech Imo, which means that when he's Magdish the mother, the Uber, the fetus, is considered another limb of the mother's body. And as such, the Hakadasha encompasses not just the mother, but also the Uber. That's called Uber Yerech Imo. Literally, the Uber is the thigh of its mother. Now, if he makes a statement that he wants to be Magdish the mother without the Uber, that is not valid. Why? Because by definition, whenever you Magdish an animal, the Hegdesh, the Kedusha status of the animal, spreads to encompass the whole animal. And therefore, since Uber Yerech Imo, when he's Magdish the mother, then by definition, the Hegdesh now encompasses even the Uber. And therefore, the Vlad is Kadosh. Now you might ask, well, all right, it was Kadosh as an Uber, but now it emerges as a separate independent being, but that's called Vlad Kodshim. So we might have shown. If you're talking about the original Ma'aseh HaKadoshah, since Uber Yerech Imo, the Ma'aseh HaKadoshah encompasses both the mother and the Uber. And if you're going to argue, but now the Uber emerges as a separate independent being, alive and well on all fours, then I'm going to answer that's called Vlad Kodshim. So no matter which way you slice the cake, you're always going to end up with the fact that that this Uber, once born, is Kadosh L'Mizbeach. He writes here, "V'chein behigdish muberes havlad kadosh," and the Vlad is kadosh on two counts: one as part of the mother, and one as a Vlad of Kodshim. Now he has a case of higdish chatos meuberes. Until now, we've been discussing cases of shlomim, where he is magdish the mother. Now we're talking about a case of chatos. Now, if we go with the shita of the chachamim against Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Elazar says that you can't be Mishayir, you can't be magdish the mother without including and encompassing the Vlad because Uber Yerech Imo. But what about the Mandiomer who disagrees and rejects Rabbi Elazar? He holds that Uber Lav Yerech Imo, and therefore the Hakdasha is only on the mother. And if he says, I want this Hakdasha to be limited, specified to the mother and not to include the Vlad, and that's called Shiro Mishayir. Shiro means to omit it, to ignore, to leave it out. Hare Shavlad Kadosh Mishum Kedushas Peh V'ein Vlad Lemisa Kedin Vlad Chatos Share Vlad Zeh Eino Kadosh Mikoach Imo Mishum Din Vlados Kodshim El Arei Kadosh B'fnei Atzmo B'Kedushas Peh. In other words, what's the status of the Vlad that's born to the mother? The mother is a chatos, and he was magdish the mother. You and I would have said, well, if he's magdish the mother and not the Vlad, then the Vlad should come under the law of Vlad Kodshim. Now, in the case of chatos, if you remember, there were 5 categories of chatos ha-mesos, based on Halacha Moshe Sinai, one of which was a Vlad chatos. So the Vlad of a chatos goes lemisa. But here in this case, we're going to say that it's not lemisa. Why? Because we're going to view the ubar as a separate entity, and it's not included in the hegdesh of the mother. Notice, when do we say Vlad Kodshim? And in the case of Vlad Chatas Lamisa, that's because the status of the mother generates a status on the Vlad. But in this case, he was Meshayar. We're going to the Maniyom Meshayar of Meshuyar, that we validate Shiur, and he could omit the Vlad from the mother, no, it's from the Maisak Dutch of the mother, such that now the mother has no relationship in terms of generating Hegdesh status to the Vlad. So there's no din of Vlad Chatas. And now if he's Magdish the Vlad as a separate entity, if at some point he decides to do so, then it's a valid Akdosh and it's not Lamisa, because it's not called Vlados Kodshim, meaning Vlados Chatos in this case. That's because we're holding Shirei Meshayar. Ulafichov, Rotza ba miskaper, Rotza b'vlada miskaper. He now has two options. He's chayav achatos for a certain avera that he violated b'shogeg, and now he needs kapara. He has two options. He could use the mother as his chatos and be miskaper from her hakrava on the mizbech, or he could be miskaper from the vlad because there was a separate hakdosha as a chatos to the vlad. It's like the case that we discussed earlier last week, where he was magdish two different animals for the same chatas. And he did that as an insurance policy, that in event that one gets lost, he has the other one and he could replace it and so forth and so on. In such a case, if he finds, let's say, the original chatas, he may have an option to choose which of the two animals he wants to use for his kapara. And here too, he was magdish both the mother and separately, independent of the mother, he was magdish the vlad. Now he has the choice which one he wants to bring for kapara. Now he goes back to Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer had said, Shiuro Eino Meshayer, Havleavad Kodesh Mishum Din Vlodos Kodshim. Right, we said that according to Rabbi Eliezer, who holds Shiuro Eino Meshayer, the Mimonefshah, either the Kedushas Peh, when it was Magdish, the mother includes the Ubar as a Yerech Imo, or alternatively, when the Uber is born and separates itself as a separate entity, independent of its mother, at that point, we're going to use the Kedusha of the mother to establish a Shem Vlad Kodshim of the Vlad. In the case of Chatos, that means Lamisa, because a Vlad Chatos is Lamisa. Harei HaVlad Kadosh Mishum Din Vlodos Kodshim Mikoach Imo. Because again, you can say Mikoach Imo according to Rabbi Elazar, because again, the original Akdosha was on the mother, and her Kedusha now generates the status of Kodesh to the Vlad Chatos when the Vlad is born. And therefore, Vlad Lemisa Midin Vlad Chatos. We have a Yosam Obemei Ima, Nechleku Amoroim Bevlodos Kodshim. HaKedoshim Mishum Din Vlad Mikoch Imam Im Kedoshim Kvar B'mei Imon Orak Vavayosam Dahainu Mishum Noldu. We have Machlokes Amoroim. He tells you to look it up in Tmura Daf Chav Hey. When is the status of Hegdesh? When does it emerge? According to one opinion, it's only after the Vlad is born. And that gives the Vlad its own independence. And the Hegdesh status of the mother now generates a status of Hegdesh on the Vlad, and that's called Vlad Kodshim. Or shall we say that already B'mei Iman, before the Vlad was even born, in its mother's womb, it already takes on the status of Kodshim. Hashochet es achatos, Umotza ba ben arba chad. So after slaughtering a chatos, they find inside the belly of the chatos a ben, where he calls it a ben arba. Ben arba, I think, means it walks on four legs. chai, and it's alive. The shitas hasover bava yosan heim kedoshim. If you're going to assume that the hegdesh is chal only when the vlad is born, is yochal abaylim lahakishus of vlad shuadai b'mei imo l'kedusha acheres. Fascinating. He can decide, we didn't think of this, to be magdish the vlad as a shlomim, as an olam, as long as it's still within its mother's belly, it's an embryo. And the reason for that is because we're holding now Bavayosan Haim Kedoshim. It only gains the status of Hegdesh with when it emerges as a Vlad, and it becomes Vlad Hegdesh Mikoch Imo. But now it hasn't emerged yet. So it's not Vlados Kodshim, and therefore he can be Magdashim for whatever carbon he wants. And that's called Kedushas Peh. Yesh min harishonim shekasav shedin ze eno amur el b'magdish behema v'ach kach nisabra. So at the time of the Hegdesh, the mother was not pregnant. She became pregnant later, after he was magdish. So that means that the Ma'aseh Hakdasha was on the mother and not on the Vlad. Because at the time of the Ma'aseh Hakdasha, the Vlad didn't exist at all. And we just established that if you hold that the Kedusha is only chal with the birth of the Vlad, as Vlados Kodshim, so does the Vlad have a status of Vlados Kodshim, which means a Kedusha that's Mikoch HaEm, when at the time that he was Magdish the Aim, the Uber didn't even exist. Magdish Muberes, on the other hand, if she's already pregnant when he was Magdish the Aim, the Uber Kadosh, Mishum Din Vlados Kodshim, was Zelo Nemar, Shiyochel Shados Es Kedusha Savlad. Right? Why does the Vlad, when it's born, gain the status of Vlad Kodshim? It's Mikah Kedusha Sa'em. So once the animal comes under the spell, the influence of Kedusha Sa'em, then you cannot be magdish for another carbon, for a different category of a carbon. Ubazelo nemar sheyachol shanos es Kedusha Savlad, ela l'sheyulad havlad harei kodesh b'Kedushas Imo. The Vlad takes on the same identical status of Hegdesh as the mother. Yesh min hachronim shetzidudu shegam hasover bavayosan heim kedoshim means that the Vlad, the Uber is only kadosh when it is born. Lo amar kein elinin kedushas haguf. This is interesting. So let's see if we can analyze this. He's saying the following. What's the status of the Vlad before it's born? We're holding Bavayasan Hein Kedoshim, which sounds like the Uber has no status as Kodshim until it's born, and it takes on the identity of Vlados Kodshim. So he quotes here the Sfas Emes said, no, that's not so. There is a kedusha to the vlad even before it's born, but not b'toras mizbeach. It doesn't have kedusha guf l'mizbeach because we're holding now pavayosan ad shetivole. But it does have, nevertheless, the status of kedusha's damin. Now, how much would you pay for the vlad? You would probably pay close to full value, because the assumption is it'll be born. So it has value on the monetary market, and therefore he was magdishit b'toras kedushas damin. When it's born, it gets an upgrade to kedushas haguf because of Lodo's Kodshim. Now, in order to explain why the Vlad b'mei imo, the Uber b'mei imo, is Kaddish b'Kedusha's damin, obviously we're not assuming Uber Yerech imo at this point. Is because of a halacha which is called Gidulei Hegdish. So let's say, for example, you have a an animal, a sheep, let's say, and she produces wool. Right? Wool grows off her back. So those are called gidulim. Like, for example, if you have truma and you plant truma in the ground and it grows, that which it grows is called gidulei truma. And in gidulim, we say that this is also relevant to Shemitah, by the way, that the product that grows gets the status of the original through the process of gidulim. And now the Sfas Emes wants to apply this concept of gidulei hegdesh in the case of an uber b'mei iman. And gidulei hegdesh means it has the status of kedusha's damin, like the original. And that which grows from kedusha's damin is likewise kaddish b'kedusha's damin. So since the uber is growing from its mother, therefore it has the status of gidulei hegdesh. Now, if I understand correctly, the Sfas Emes is saying that when he was magdish the mother receives inherently a kedusha, latent kedushas damin. It's really kedushas mizbeach, kedusha guf, but it encompasses within it kedushas damin, and that kedushas damin will generate a halacha status of gidulei hegdesh with regard to the uber. The uber is considered gidulei hegdesh. See, I'm a little perplexed because Gidulei Hegdesh means that all the power. I don't know enough biology to analyze this, but it seems to me, tell me if you agree with me intuitively, the uber grows on its own. I mean, again, it needs its mother for, the warmth and all the chemicals and the milk and so forth, so to nourish the baby, but the baby grows on its own. It's not like gedule truma, where you plant something and you get vegetation and growth, like from a seed. I don't know. He says, "Avlad nisgadel beimo meimo v'kedusha." Therefore, it's gedule hegdish. He says, "Im kain eich yochel lahadgish es avlad shu adayin b'mei imo l'kedusha acheres." See, if it has the status of gedule hegdish as a vlad, as an ubar, then it takes on the identical status of hegdish as the mother. And yet we said that as long as it's an ubar, if you hold ubar lav yarachimo, you can be magdish the ubar for another carbon, a different category of carbon. So that ends the Hakdama to Tmura. On page Tesvav, he gives you a list of the various commentaries on Masechta Tmura. So if we were learning Masechta Tmura, that would be an important list. Truth is, I only recognize a few. This whole list is totally foreign to me. Birchas HaZevach, Tzon Kodshim is pretty famous. Chok Nosan, Meleches Choshev, Ola Shlomo, Kodshei David, Muras Toda, Sheilas HaKohanim, Torah, Matan B'Seiser, Mayim Kedoshim. Never heard of any of them. But he says it also has some of the classic commentaries. That gives me a little bit more optimism that I can learn Tmura one day. It's got the Likutei Halachos of the Chofetz Chaim, and it has the Korban Osham, the Mishmeres Kahuna, the Chivas HaKodesh, Romei Soda, Chazon Ish, Kilos Yaakov. I mean, those are more classic. I'm not familiar with all of them, but some of them. And then he has Sfarim no Sofit. There are other Sfarim that have Chidushim on all of Shas, including Kodshim. For example, the Minchas China. Okay, then, so that's what we have here. So we can have a schnapps and make a siyum on the Hakdama to the Masechta Tmura. I think it took us a month. I don't know how long. Anybody remember when we started? It was a while ago. Now, the Hakdama to Masechta Nida, we should try it at least for a day or two. It'll be definitely worth our time, because it'll give you a structure of the different Shina Nida and a Shomeres Yom, and we'll talk about a Zava. So at least, we'll see how it goes. Is that all right with everybody? We'll try it. The only problem is, if you're not here in the classroom, I don't know how to get you a copy of it. I need to do what's called scanning. So I can't promise you that between today and tomorrow, I'm going to be able to scan it. There is another option. What? Do you know by chance Yechiel Prince? No? Okay. He has a way through the computer of getting stuff from Masifta, but I shouldn't say it out loud because, copyright laws.